Well, hello! Got some products in from Boldclash today, who are pretty much what you call a whoop specialist. And by tiny whoop, I don't mean the specific ones that Team Tiny Whoop do. I think tiny whoop's more of a generic term now, kind of meaning sort of, you know, 66 to 68 mil inducted fan type copter. Anyway, that aside, we have got from them the B-03 bwoop, which is basically a little brushed whoop style quad. The Boldclash bwoop has the catchy name of B-0605. This is an FPV camera and VTX. And this here, which is the P01 whoop power charger. Basically a really nice multi-charge for 1S batteries. Let's concentrate on this first, and I'll show you exactly what we get in the box. Because at first glance, it's very much what you'd expect from one of these toy style quads. You've got the instructions. We got some accessories like extra props and a little USB charger. We got one of these tiny little controls with the, you know, the not particularly good sticks. And then we've got the little quad itself, which has included with it a 1S 300 milliamp battery. Now, at this point you'll probably say, well, yeah, these are a dime a dozen. Why are we talking about this one? Well, I like kind of the modularity of it for upgrading. So one of these, just to put it in perspective, with all the gubbins, costs like $16.99, which is not much. One I liked about it, because obviously, you know, this is going to fly around, is you can just pop the top off like that. And what you've got here is a power socket. And that power socket, if we get this out of the box, what we see here is the VTX and camera combo, which will then sit on top there like that and make quite a neat little conversion, I thought. So I thought that was pretty good. I mean, this is actually more expensive than the quad itself, but I figured, you know, 17 bucks to mess around and see if you like it, and then potentially go and upgrade, and you know, you've got the cheap box goggles or one of those receivers for an Android phone, you could use that. So there's that aspect that I liked about it. But the other thing is that the bwoop is one of these things that can natively run what's called the Silverware firmware, where people seem to have put some open source firmware together that will do a lot more than just, you know, the same old it's always in, you know, some self-stabilized mode, and you've got these buttons and they do flips and stuff. So I was interested to see if you can get something that's very cheap, you can move it to FPV, and without having like a proper controller or a Betaflight controller, could you actually do some vaguely proper sort of acro flying indoors? I mean, I'm always thinking acro flying is a little limited indoors because these haven't got a lot of power and stuff, but we should check it out. So first off, I'm going to charge up the battery and I'm going to fly it line of sight just with the regular top, like that. See how that goes, just to feel it out first, and then we'll upgrade to this thing and see how it does. I should quickly talk about the battery charger. I don't know if I get time to talk about it in this video, depending how long this video is, or I might talk about it separately. But essentially you've got 6 ports all the way around with different 1S connectors. You can power it by DC or LiPo, and you can then allocate each port, can be LiPo or high voltage LiPo, and you can set them all to a certain number of milliamps charging. So yeah, we'll see if we can show this in the video in a bit later, else we'll do a separate one about it.
Okay, so I've got the little whoop, I've got the controller, I've got the instructions. The only thing that was a bit confusing to me is this sensitivity setting, i.e. the rates, which is just as press the power supply indicators, which is a bit of a weird thing to do. Anyway, let's try this out. Let's plug it in and see what happens. So presumably then, this is in low rate. Yeah. And there's a flip button on the right hand side, so if we press that, it will flip. So let's try on the second rate, the medium intermediate rate. And it's not crazy. I tend to find that the problem is that this is the yaw increases more than anything else. Let's put that down again. We'll try, oops, hello. Rate number 3. So this is the fastest rate. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah, That looks spicier. Whoa. Maybe you'll go a little bit crazy. Well, that certainly tells me a little bit about as a line of sight flyer, and you know, felt pretty good as you'd expect. These are the 7mm motors. Most of the sort of tiny whoops have 6mm, so it's supposed to be a little bit more powerful. But you know, that was good fun to flying around. I found the lights very good for orientation, but of course I want to see what it's like FPV now. So I'm going to now take this apart. Well, I say take it apart. Just pop the top off and pop the new bit on. Put the battery back in a recharge. I didn't use all the battery up. I'm reliably told there's about 5-6 minutes, but it's going to change once we put a camera on there anyway. So let's do that now. Let's get on with it.
Okay, so I thought it might be useful just to show a bit of a close-up here, just to see what we do. And you see we've got the little hatches here that we just pop out like that and like that, and this whole thing just pops off. Now, slightly confusingly here, there's 3 pins. There's the positive, negative, and one that's labelled XS. I don't know what that is. Obviously we just need 2 pins. This is even slightly more confusing when we take this camera, which is the B-0605, and I think this is possibly because this is designed for the brushless version. So it looks very swish and says BW or bwoop on it, and this is a channel changing button. You see it's got a separate camera and VTX there, but it's actually got, you will notice, 4 pins on the output, and I can only assume that this is for perhaps a brushless version of their whoop that has no SD on it, so it's got video out and video in again. Because what they also put in here, they put some handy little bits in to say this is for the B-06, so you can actually fit it correctly. Another one saying that's for the Inductrix, and then elsewhere in the box you get a couple of spare dipole antennas. Those have to be soldered back on. A lens cap, some instructions that talk to you about the relationship between sort of the VTX and camera, and how to set the band and channel, but don't actually mention the pinouts. The reason I believe this is a video out, video in is you had this little thing in. This is for the Inductrix, and there's a little loop, and that would only be for things going from video in or video out to video back in to get sent, ending in this 2-pin. Again, it's a 2-pin plug into a 3-pin adapter, but that's just a case of putting it in the right place, which I can't do in the viewfinder. Hang on. So you just have to push it in there, so it's out of the way. Now this is going to fit on just fine like that. What I'm going to do is just figure out exactly how these pieces go in, and then we'll show you what it looks like. And check it out, we're done. So I just put one of those rubber grommet things under there and then screwed a screw through it on each side. That's all I could see of doing, and we're done. No soldering, no mucking about, we're just ready to go, except I hadn't charged the battery yet, so I'll do that and then we'll take it for a quick fly. I kind of like this this channel changer on the top as well. Normally you have to sort of try and poke things or do dip switches and stuff, so this is quite nice. I think it looks pretty cool too, which is always good. Of course you don't have to get this sort of swanky top one. Any sort of all-in-one camera with that plug or a plug you can adapt to that will just slot in there, and you can fly it as a sort of the more traditional Inductrix with a sort of all-in-one camera on top. But yeah, I like this top better. It looks very sleek and swanky, doesn't it? Yeah, cool. Let's fly it.
And we are ready for the maiden. I'm using my Fat Sharks with the Menace Bandicoot because we're on linear antennas. And off we go into the air. Just having basically a quick fly around. And yeah, things feel pretty good. You really do notice the difference on these 7mm motors. The original Inductrix and the Eachine 010, they flew really nicely
and then once you put the all-in-one camera VTX in them, they tended to sort of bog down a bit, so you really had to give it a lot of throttle. With these slightly bigger motors on still the same frame, things go a lot better and you feel you've got more power. It's by no means a rocket ship, but you don't have to go crazy on the throttle all the time. So things to note here, I think the VTX and camera does a pretty good job here. We're inside with not a huge amount of light and it seems to be doing okay. Handles the prop wash well coming down the stairs. The thing I most pick up flying this instead of using my normal Taranis is of course the radio. The little transmitter they give you, the sticks, they haven't got an awful lot of movement in it, and you really do notice that it's very hard to be precise. It is proportional movement, and when I move the yaw, it can go fast or slow. It's just very difficult to get that movement very accurate. So it's much easier to sort of bomb around the house quite quickly than go slow. So I just landed there just so I could open up the conservatory doors, because I just wanted to take it for a quick spin in the garden just to see how it does. Now again, it's a very small quad and I wouldn't recommend you went any distance, especially on this little transmitter, and you don't really want any breeze around. But yeah, it handled itself okay. A bit more of a breeze at a blow around, and here's just the normal window selfie there. I do like those two lights. Now I didn't have a battery and I wanted to do some trying to be more precise, because as I said, it's certainly more of a struggle with the little radio they give you. This would be a lot easier using my Taranis, and if you've got a radio with one of those multi-protocol modules, you'll have a much better time here. For me, it's kind of, it struggles, but we get through it. It's not super easy, but at the same time it's pretty easy to fly, and you know, all in all, a good couple of batteries through. Really enjoyed it.
Well, I thought this was quite a lot of fun to fly around, and certainly it looks the part, doesn't it? To put it into perspective, here's the original Inductrix, and I've removed the FPV gear from that, so that's just the norm at the moment. But here is my sort of previous model, if you like. This is a converted Eachine E010, and this is kind of where I think this canopy is quite nice. If you have a look at the difference between the sort of stuck on with 3D printed bits and that versus the sort of sleek thing, I think this is pretty nice. So the reason I'm talking about this, as I mentioned at the beginning, is twofold. I like it, the fact it's modular. $16, you get one of these without the FPV gear and this little controller. I mean, this controller's not particularly great. I really did notice on the yaw where it's just a big stick. It's very difficult to get fine movement in there, but blasting up and down the house, not a problem, and even getting some, you know, quite delicate stuff, trying to fit gently underneath things, that was all okay. I mean, it would be better on a big proper hobby radio, but not too bad. So yeah, for a cheap price you get this. It basically lets people to give it a go, see what they like to do, and if they're into it. And if they then like it, for like $20 extra, you can get the whole FPV gear, and then you can FPV this. Obviously you need some sort of screen or goggles or something, but it's the next little step on. And I thought the next progression of this one, well, it's one of two things really. It would be getting rid of this radio, and if you've got one of those multi-protocol adapters for your radio, these talk the Bayang protocol, so it shouldn't be a problem. But I figured perhaps the next step on from this is trying that open source firmware and seeing how that goes. I don't want to do it in this video because I haven't touched it and I don't know how long time it's going to do, and I feel this video is probably long enough. So I'm going to come back on a part 2 and I'm going to flash this with some firmware that will let me do more acro stuff, not just press the button when I want to do a flip. You know, if I want to do a flip, I want to wind the control over. I don't know if this controller is going to be up for the task, but we'll try it. But for the time being, this has been the Boldclash bwoop B-03, and I think, despite the label that says B0605, this is the Boldclash F02H FPV micro all-in-one camera. I'm still a little bit not sure on it because it seems to have these extra 2 cables, presumably video in, video out. Anyway, that is the rather lovely black canopy come VTX camera. Anyway, I'll put links down below and join me in part 2 when I see what happens with this open source firmware lark. Bye. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.